I'm laughing.
Okay, my name, hi. I'm Anthony and I'm a trad musician. It's like the AA. No, I'm Anthony. I'm Anthony Roach and I'm a flute player from Waterford. And I guess that there was surrounded by music as a child. There's music on both sides of my parents' families, so I had no choice really. So grew up with music. My dad was a musician and my brother was a musician. My sisters played. There was always music in the house, singing. There was a piano playing, guitars, always the radio on. So that was, I guess, how it was. How I developed the love for it anyway.
And I was the complete opposite. There was no music in my family. Me and Emily are sisters. My name is Sally. No music growing up. Only we were forced into lessons involuntarily. No, we were put into lessons when we were very young. And we just grew up, that's all we knew, going to lessons every Wednesday. And we just kept going and just going to more and more sessions. And then we met other musicians like the two lads and just more and more musicians in Waterford. And the scene just grew bigger and bigger. And we're still playing today, so.
It was all...
I kind of swayed both ways because I was so young, I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I tried it all. So I tried the classical side as well. But I always came back to the trad side, always.
Yeah. I started with traditional Irish music. I started learning the tin whistle in school at the age of 7, which was kind of a fairly normal thing to happen in schools, especially in the Christian Brother schools anyway. So and then my dad played, so that kind of lent itself to my learning. But as I got older, I kind of deviated from the trad and I actually gave up playing music. I was big into sports when I was kind of a teenager, which kind of took me away from music for ages. And I started learning the guitar when I was 17 because I started finding my voice, I guess, with singing. So I didn't get back to playing the flute till I was about 25, but that's what I always really loved. But I kind of always had a good, diverse background or repertoire of music, yeah.
I'm a year and a half older, but I was saying we were sent to lessons when we were 6 years old, and we both started out on tin whistle. Like Anthony said, it's the first instrument to start on usually. If you learn it in school, and I suppose it's the cheapest, it's the easiest, it's the smallest instrument. It's just a handy one really to start off with. It was always tin whistles lying around the house, so I suppose when you start one instrument, it's much easier to pick up a second instrument. So. I went on to the flute. Sally went on to the banjo. Well, she tried the mandolin first and then went on to the banjo. We both did exams on our instruments as well. I suppose just as something to work towards every week. And we both did our diplomas and that. We were probably, we were 15, 16, I suppose, finishing those.
Wow.
And then I picked up the concertina then when I was about 16. And that's kind of my main instrument. That was my go-to instrument. But we don't compete. We don't do exams anymore. It's all just for enjoyment and socialising and things like that.
So my name's Colin Harries, and I have a very different. Everyone here really, but similar to the girls, there's no real music in my family, in a traditional way. But there was a really strong second generation music scene, which is, my mum would have had bits of Daniel on in the house, and what I think every second generation house would have in the UK at that time. And but there was massive recordings that were really formative for me. There was Bringing It All Back Home, which was you, Donald Lundy's The Session. There was a band Falling in a Dog, loads of great bands around. And then there was this, a friend of mine had a Ceilidh band that he was involved in, so I used to go along and just sit there and just wanted to join in. And the best way I could join in, I found, was to learn to play the guitar because the tunes were really hard. So I thought I'll go for that side of it. And it is a whole social scene that I loved in the beginning, of going and playing music with your mates. And I know that's the same in London. I know that because I've been there and I've seen it. Like there's massive communities in English cities where you find absolutely top class music. But it was just so free, and it was just like start at 8 in the evening, finish at 8 in the morning, and that's no lie. And that's how it was. And it just moving here, then that's how it very first started. So that'd be the formative stuff. Moving here, that was just always going to happen, I think, and meeting great musicians like the lads and playing with them. Actually, Spree Festival in Waterford was part of the reason I moved there. Definitely, I saw this Spree Festival and thought, Waterford's like this every weekend, great.
Oh, amazing.
It's great, but it wasn't like the Spree every weekend.
Yeah, so Pádraig O'Brien is my name, and I play the accordion, and I suppose I've been playing it since I was 13 or 14, so over 30 years now, yeah. I suppose there was music in the house. My dad played Irish music, so he played banjo, and yeah, like I would have grown up with him playing the music, with Irish music being on in the house the whole time, you know, with records and stuff like that, LPs playing, so much so that, and it's soaked in subliminally, so much so that years later, when I got into listening to bands and like the Planksty or the Botty Band and things like that, I would instinctively know what tunes they were going to come next, or I'd know the bouzouki line. I something would tell me he's going to go to such a chord, because I had absorbed it from a young age without knowing that I was absorbing it, you know. And I suppose in my house, my dad had a little small music room, and my bedroom was next to that, so I went to sleep every night with him learning tunes. So I suppose I picked up the tunes from that. You know, there's tunes now that would be played at sessions that I still have no recollection of ever sitting down to learn, but I just know them from him playing them. I have an association with certain tunes that I know I learned just by listening to him in that room, you know, even though I never actually sat down to, you know, officially learn them as such, you know, so. Do you know what you'd find with compared to the Scottish stuff plays in a lot of major keys. It's very uplifting, it's very happy music. The Irish music has, like, a lot of tunes are quite fast and uplifting as well, but some of the tunes then have a lonesome feel to them, you know. And there's a word we describe to describe it in the Irish language, a word called uighness, which has no literal translation into English, because it's somewhere between somber and loneliness, and it's the way they talk in Irish language. In the Irish language, they would say, like, I suppose if you think of the literal translation as being loneliness, the way you would word it is Tá uignas orm, which means the loneliness is above me or over me. And I think it's a beautiful way of describing it, because sometimes it's almost like a cloud, this loneliness, that, you know, when you feel it, you mightn't feel it in you, but you feel it pushing down on you, you know. And I think some of the tunes have that, and it's a subtle thing, a subtle difference between the Scottish music and the Irish music. The Irish music tends to be more into the minor keys, and have these more lonesome notes in them that just, you know, you can kind of feel the pain. And I think those tunes come from all the immigration, you know. Like, obviously we know the songs, there's a lot of songs in the Irish tradition that are very you know, people affected by immigration, that sort of thing, but you can hear it in the tunes as well, you know. And it's funny, I find sometimes in a session or something, you might be playing with a musician that doesn't understand it, like say maybe a baron player or something like that. I'm thinking of one guy I know that doesn't get that. So there's some tunes that have to be played faster, and then there's some that need to be played that little bit slower, because they have that lonely feel to them, and they don't work when you play them like at a higher tempo or whatever. I could be in work, you know, and I'd be working on something, and I will actually be, or I could be listening to a tune, you know, or listening to, have my headphones on and I'm on the computer, and the tune will be on, and I have to stop really working on it, because I'll be trying to pick out the notes, and when I'm picking them out, I'll be going A, F, D, C, A, B, C, D, B, C, D, A, F, D, C, A, B, A, G, E, D, D, A, F, D, and I can kind of visualize the notes and almost kind of call them. And sometimes when I'm playing a tune, I'm calling them in my head as they're going. So yeah, so that's kind of like I think that's a kind of a mathematical thing. But as regards, you know, look, the other thing I would say about it is, sometimes when I'm teaching people, I'm saying, you know, for older people, like a man came to me one day, and it's quite funny. He said he was getting a bit frustrated. He was in his 60s, and he said, "I'll never be as good as you." And I said, "You won't." And it sounds really egotistical, and I didn't intend it to sound egotistical. I was trying to be honest with the man and say, "You won't." Not for any reason, but it took me 30 years to get here. So it's going to take you 30 years, and chances are you don't have that much time. So I kind of said, "But listen," I said, "I went through that maybe 15 years ago thinking I'm never going to be as good as Martin O'Connor. And I'm not ever going to be as good as Martin O'Connor. But I found peace with that." And this is what I'm trying to say to him: find peace with it, because once you find peace with that, with where you're at, the level you're at, and just be happy with it. Because you get more joy out of just playing at your level and enjoying that than trying to get better, and always be trying to be better and better. But what I said to him was, for the half an hour a day that you're practicing, what are you thinking about? He said, "I'm not thinking about anything." I said, "Exactly." I said, "People go to mindfulness classes to try and switch off." I said, "You're getting mindfulness for half an hour of mindfulness every day where you don't even realise it, because you can't be thinking about, I have to go to Tesco's, or I have to go collect the kids, and I have this to do tomorrow in work." I just played for 2 hours there, and I know I have a busy day in work tomorrow. It's kind of been on my head since I left work today. I was having my dinner, I was thinking about it. But you know what? In those 2.5 hours tonight, I didn't think of it once, because you can't. Your mind is on A, F, D, C, A, B, A, G, B, C, D, A, F, D, C, whatever the notes are. And that's it, to get to that space, you know. So I feel very lucky to be able to do that, you know. Blessed. Yeah, really.
mom plays Irish music.
No,
Very small.
when we were younger, like I definitely thought it was uncool to play
Yeah.
Irish music. Very uncool. I was so embarrassed to ever play in front of anyone. But I just think in the last kind of, I'd probably say 10 years, it's definitely after this music, the trad music scene in Waterford is really after growing, as is every other kind of music scene in Waterford. For some reason, music is just really taken off here. I'm like in other parts of Ireland, then like in probably more rural parts of Ireland, the likes of County Clare, County Kerry, like music is massive there. Like especially Clare, like they call it the home of traditional Irish music. It's you'd be the odd one out if you weren't learning a traditional instrument if you're from Clare. Like so, it really depends on where you go. Obviously, like the likes of Dublin, like you've so many other things as well as trad music that there might be a presence in certain areas, but I think it definitely does depend on where you're from and kind of the experiences that you kind of get along the way.
Yeah. No, I'd be older than the girls, but I think the same. I think the same would apply though. When I was growing up, and I was learning the tin whistle, like, and then growing into my adolescent and teenage years, like I was the only fella in a group of about like, or even out of all the girls and boys like in the group, and there was about 30 of us, I was the only one who played like. So it wasn't a very popular thing, it wasn't a very cool thing. So especially like in Waterford City, you know, the trad scene was very small as I was growing up, you know, it was very you could count on.
Oh, many of us.
Yeah, there weren't many at all. Like.
No.
So identity wise for me, like, you know, I play other genres of music, but the thing that I feel the most is traditional music, like, for sure. Yeah. So that would be part of my identity. Like I'd always tell people that I'm a trad flute player first before anything else.
It's a much more personal community, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
Like if you meet another trad player, you bond better than if you know you met someone who was from
And
a different
chances
kind of
are you're
genre.
going to know somebody in their family or their friends through trad music. Like I'd say
It's
I
much
probably know
more
someone in every county in Ireland who
Yeah.
has a trad music.
Yeah.
It's such a close knit community that like everybody knows everybody in the
Yeah.
trad scene.
Yeah.
And if you're not in the trad community, you don't get it.
Yeah.
So you can't explain it to someone. They won't get it.
Yeah.
You can keep friends to trad that you might not see. Might see them once a year at a flower, but there's a strong bond there.
Yeah.
Because of that.
Yeah.
And you'll keep them for years,
Yeah.
won't you?
Yeah,
It's really weird. You
absolutely,
pick up from the same place when you meet them again. Like, And tonight, the session is where I met Sally and Emily. Do you know?
Me too.
Yeah.
So we all met.
Same, yeah.
Same with you, aren't you?
Same,
Yeah.
the same. I met you and I met them when they were only Scots.
Still Scots.
I don't know.
Oh yeah, there's always, even though we're saying now there wasn't music in our family growing up, there's always going to be a great granduncle or a great someone who was a box player, or because we grew up in Ireland, like there's always going to be someone down the line who had a fiddle in the attic, or you know, who had the box out and whatever.
Yes.
So it is definitely in the line of every family.